Hello students, today we'll continue to study the first chapter of history, that is from the beginning of time. In the first part of the video, you have seen the evolution of human beings. Here in this video, we'll study about early human ways of obtaining food, their shelter and their residences. Early humans would have obtained food through a number of ways, such as gathering, hunting, scavenging, and fishing. Gathering would involve collecting plant foods such as seeds, nuts, berries, fruits, and tubers. And gathering was practiced individually rather than collectively. The food habits of early humans. We get to know this through fossilized plant remains, which are relatively rare but that were accidentally burned and results in carbonization. In this form, organic matter is preserved for a long span of time. This helps us to find out the evidence for food gathering by early man. So, the fossil remains help us to understand and study the food habits of early human beings. And it is assumed hunting might have started around 50,000 years ago. We have clear evidence for the deliberate planned hunting and butchery of large mammals by the early humans, and that comes from two sites, that is Bogsgrove in southern England and Schöningen in Germany. Increasingly, it is being suggested that the early hominids scavenged or foraged for meat and marrow from the carcasses of animals that had died naturally or had been killed by other predators. This means that early humans, they scavenged on dead animals and the carcasses of other creatures might have died naturally or which have been killed by other predators. It is equally possible that small mammals such as rodent, birds, their eggs, reptiles, and even insects were eaten by early hominids. Fishing was also important, as is evident from the discovery of fish bones at different sites. So it is also said and proved that early humans ate fish. Fishing was practiced from rivers, ponds, and lakes with a hand, stone, and wood by the early human beings. Early humans from trees to caves and open air sites. Now let's study about the patterns of residence. One way of reconstructing the evidence for patterns of residence is by plotting the distribution of artifacts. We get to know about the residence and we get to know about some places where food resources were abundant, humans visited repeatedly and have more artifacts. So the places which have a lot of food items or plants or animals, the humans might have visited those places more frequently, and we have evidences of such places. In such areas, early humans left behind traces of their activities and presence. These places that were less frequently visited would have fewer artifacts. So, the areas that have more artifacts, we get to know that humans might have visited those places more. And where do we find less artifacts? That places might have been less frequented by the early humans. It is also important to remember that the first shelter was tree, and which would have been shared by hominids other primates and carnivores. So, trees were the early shelters of the early humans, used by hominids, primates and carnivores. Between 4 lakh and 1,25,000 years ago, natural caves began to be used by them. Evidences for this comes from sites in Europe. In the Lazaret cave in southern France, a 12 into 4 meter shelter was built against the cave wall. Inside it, there were evidences of stone, tools and food sources. At another site, Terra Amanda, on the coast of southern France, flimsy shelters with the roofs of wood and grasses were built for short-term seasonal visits. So, we get to know that the early humans used caves as their residence, and there are evidences of kind of shelter that is built against the wall in the cave, and inside there were evidences of stone tools and food sources. So that because of that we assume that the early humans might have stayed there. And another site that is Terra Amanda, the coast of southern France, we get to know that shelters with the roofs and wood grasses were built for short-term seasonal visits by the early humans. Maybe during certain season there were a lot of food available, so they might have frequented that place, visited that place and stayed on there. Houses made of stone and baked clay and burnt bone along with stone tools dated between 1.4 and 1 million years ago have been found at Chesowanja, Kenya and Swartkrans, South Africa. So we also get to know that early humans began to make residences with the help of stone and baked clay, and evidences we have from Kenya and South Africa. That happened almost 1 million years ago. On the other hand, are indications of the controlled use of fire. This had several advantages. Fire provided warmth and light inside the caves and could be used for cooking. So, we know that early humans began to use fire for various purposes. So fire was also used to harden wood, as for instance the tip of the spear. If they wanted to make a spear, then the wood has to be hardened and sharpened. So that was possible with the help of fire. The use of heat also facilitated the flaking of tools. With the help of heat, early humans flaked, cut and sharpened the tools. Moreover, the ways in which humans use and make tools often require greater memory and complex organizational skills, both of which were present in humans. So we have already seen the gradual development of humans. So as the humans developed, their intelligence grew. With the growth of intelligence, their ability to make use of hands and legs for various purposes increased. It was possible with the increased memory and the complex organizational skills that developed in the early humans. They use this same development for making tools. The earliest evidence for the making and use of stone tools comes from sites in Ethiopia and Kenya. It is likely that the earliest stone tool makers were Homo habilis. Moreover, the ways in which humans use and make tools often require greater memory and complex organizational skills, both of which were present in humans. We do not know whether tool making was done by men or women or both. It is possible that stone tool makers were both women and men. Women in particular may have made and used tools to obtain food for them as well as to sustain their children after weaning. So, it is probable that women who took care of younger ones need to find food for their younger ones and for themselves. So, they might have used tools more. About 35,000 years ago, improvements in the techniques for killing animals are evident from the appearance of new kinds of tools such as spear throwers and the bow and arrow. So we find better tools were invented, improvements were made in the tools. All this happened around 35,000 years ago. We have evidences from different sites. There were other needs such as trapping of fur-bearing animals. That was to use the fur for clothing, and later on the invention of sewing needles. Sewn clothing comes from about 21,000 years ago. Besides, with the introduction of the punch blade technique to make small chisel-like tools, it was now possible to make engravings on bone and antler, ivory and wood. So, with the development of intelligence and brain size, humans became more intelligent, and there were evidences almost 21,000 years ago that humans used sewn clothing. Ivory means the teeth of elephant, and wood.